Thank you, James Monk, for those words. We had a wedding here yesterday, and that always equals a tired preacher on Sunday morning. Yes, Dwight, thank you for nodding your head, yes. But it will struggle through with me, and we might even get out early. Luke chapter 18. Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and not to lose heart. He said, "In a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, 'Grant me justice against my opponent.' For a while he refused, but later he said to himself, 'Though I have no fear of God or no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice, so that she may not wear me out by continually coming.' And the Lord said, 'Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?'" Well, that's a little complicated parable, isn't it? People cry out. The migrant, the child, the elderly, the deserted spouse or children, the teenager, lonely, the sprung parent, the new arrival in a city or country, the shy person alone at home, the political prisoner without recourse to justice, the hospital patient without any visitors, the dying soul with no one to stick with them, the grief-stricken with no one to comfort them, starving people pleading for food, victims of torture, people begging for restored relationships. People are crying out everywhere. Does that fit with experience, that God hears these cries? Jesus says God will answer speedily. How do we interpret that? I was, as a young man, warned when I moved into a community about a man who I was told, will wear a wart on you. Have you heard that expression? And it was true. This man might generously be described as pesky. He would try everybody's patience. I moved to another city, and every morning a gentleman would call me to see how I was doing for a couple of weeks, until I finally told him to stop. I was doing just fine, except he kept waking me up when he would call me in the morning. The kinds of people that wear a wart on you. And this parable tells a story about a woman who wore not a yellow ribbon, but a wart on the unjust judge. These parables of Jesus seem like simple stories, but they get really, really complicated. Talking about different prayers of people and people in terrible situations, people who don't know which way to turn, they pray to their God, and maybe they don't feel like anything changes. But Jesus said that not one sparrow falls to the ground without God knowing it. It wasn't a promise that sparrows won't fall, but that God will recognize they fell and be concerned. There is no promise that marriages will not break, that car accidents will not happen, that cancer will not ravage a lovely person. Yet somehow, by the breadth and depth and height of God's resistance love, these tough and tragic experiences are worked into some kind of ultimate vindication. And will not God vindicate his called people who cry to him day and night? Will he delay over them? I tell you, he will vindicate them speedily. Maybe this is a parable about the need to pray always and not lose heart. But maybe it's a parable about who is actually praying and who is listening. You know, when we pray like this widow in the parable persistently, I think it tends to change us. Most of the time, our prayer life is a bit fleeting. Something happens and we remember a person or an incident, and we live that in prayer for a while. And then we kind of move on to something else. But there are those who consistently pray, who make an effort every day to remember and keep remembering. And I think that after a while, those prayers begin to have an effect on the prayee. So, if the parable could be about something we didn't think of, could it mean that God is the widow and we are the judge? That God keeps coming, as you said, keeps loving us no matter what we do, and we are the one who fears neither God nor others, who has no regard for anything else, and God keeps coming and coming and coming. Well, that's a different way to look at the parable. It has a little twist to it that makes it a little easier to hear. This God of ours who so consistently loves us, who is there when the sparrow falls, who is there when the diagnosis is bad, who is there when the accident happens, who is there when we are in grief, who is there when there is injustice, who is there when there is war. God suffering with us, pleading with us to do something. The truth is that Judge lives in me. And if this parable has anything to offer, it is that maybe prayer alone will wear down my inner judge. Maybe it will soften my heart. Maybe the obstacles that I place between myself and God, my shame, my woundedness, my inattentiveness, my fear, these things are dismantled by God's consistent coming to us. Prayer can be a fist that breaks down the doors of my own stubborn and sinful resistance. It is what enables the light of God's compassion to illuminate the dark and most oppressed corners of human life with hope and compassion. I think it's a good time in the life of Kings Highway Christian Church. Those of you who have been around here have seen many things. People come, people go. Ideas come and ideas go. We hold on to some things gradually morph into something else. And here we are at a time when we're looking so seriously at what's next in our life. Rather than just letting life happen at Kings Highway, we have chosen to step back and ask ourselves, where do we really want to go next? Rather than just let whatever happens, happens. It's a good time because a lot of you have expressed the support for this process. A lot of you have reached out and spent time and done study and are working on projects that will come to some culmination the first of next month, that we'll put some ideas down on paper. All of us are part of that process, whether we're directly involved or not, because we are the church. We worship and pray and sometimes play together and get to know one another and support one another as we can in those times of need. Sometimes you are the answer to someone's prayers, and sometimes you are the wearing of the wart. But it's all part of being the church together. Let us hear the parable, and let us listen to God speaking to us in our time.